Time for Michael Borky's Stat of the Day.
Yeah, so been thinking about, or trying to think about, a new angle to the Ole Miss-Georgia game, and of course we'll talk about it more tomorrow, but I looked up a few stats on the Ole Miss defense, wondering if they will have enough on Saturday to stop this Georgia offense. Ole Miss has played the number 13 most difficult schedule in college football. For what it's worth, they have the number 9 strength of record, so how they've fared against that schedule. But still, number 13 in America. And their defense ranks 32nd in the country in opponent yards per play, 24th in the country in opponent rushing yards per carry. They're second in the SEC in sacks, and they're fourth in the SEC in interceptions. Those are oddly specific, but meaningful stats for sure. That's your stat of the day. My question is, do you think that despite the vast improvement that they have made from last season to this season under Pete Golding in many ways, do they have enough on Saturday to stop this Georgia offense getting healthier, possibly even, as our guest said yesterday, 15 plays out of Brock Bowers?
Stop? No. Be competitive with? Yeah, I think so. But it's the combination of what can the Ole Miss defense do and what can the Ole Miss offense do. Who has a better? I'm not hijacking your question, but it's like your question spawned another one. Who has the better day? Ole Miss's offense against Georgia's defense, or Ole Miss's defense against Georgia's offense? I see you both in deep thought.
How often has Georgia's offense impressed this year?
They impressed against Kentucky. They hung 51 on Kentucky.
In Florida.
Kentucky
in Florida.
43 in the win against Florida.
What, scored on their first 3 possessions, I think, and then kind of leveled off for a little bit.
And remember, Florida scored first.
They did. It was 7-3,
Florida
right?
took a 7-0 or 7-3 lead in that game.
I think Ole Miss's offense has a better day than the defense does.
Which may or may not be enough for a win.
Right.
Right.
So it's like when you go back and you look at the game kind of in retrospect, which was better, Ole Miss's defense or Ole Miss's offense?
Ole Miss's defense is more consistent. As crazy as that is to say. Because,
Are they?
Yeah. When has Ole Miss's offense been great? Twice. Now, against probably the 2 best teams they've played.
Yeah.
But over 500 yards of offense against the A&M defense is a great day.
The second and third best teams they played.
And then Alabama.
Alabama's the best team they played. They scored 10.
And they were great against LSU. Now, the competition changes some, of course, but Ole Miss's defense beat Arkansas. It's Vanderbilt, but Vanderbilt had their worst offensive output of the season against Ole Miss. Defense kept them in the Tulane game. Hell, defense kept them in the Alabama game. Talent and depth took over late, but what was the halftime score of that game? What was it, 7-6 in Tuscaloosa? So you've gotten more good their defense is why they hung around in Auburn. And again, it's Auburn, but still, they've had more quote unquote great defensive performances than offensive performances this year.
Yeah. But then the performance against Texas A&M was not as good.
Yeah.
Right? Defensively, they were not as good against Texas A&M as they were the couple of weeks before against Arkansas and Auburn. Obviously, Texas A&M is a better and more talented team than either of those squads, but
now they're healthy offensively. I mean, Alabama seems, and Milrow's gotten better as the year's gone on and stuff like that, but I mean, think of what they didn't have in Tuscaloosa.
They didn't have Trey Harris for all practical purposes, and they didn't have Caden Prieskorn. The offense is different, completely different with those 2 guys on the field.
Yeah.
Completely different.
And Watkins' hand, seemingly getting more useful every week. The bandages on it are lesser and less as the weeks go on. With the Pettis injury changing the statement, but when it comes to weapons, remember Judkins had the rib thing early this year too? This is as healthy weapon-wise as they've been all season.
What's the number of points that Ole Miss is going to have to score to have a legitimate chance to win this game?
31.
I'd say 35, but
31.
Same difference.
Yeah.
Georgia scored
Getting into
30
the
in the
30s.
win against Missouri. You can't help but look at a couple of the scores from the first half of the season and go, wait. Georgia beat South Carolina 24-14. And they beat Auburn 27-20. Now, I do think that we can all go, okay, this is a different Georgia team now than in the first 6 weeks of the year. They did enough to win in those games. And I feel like to some degree that has kind of stuck with us. And we remember the slow start against UT Martin and Ball State before they turned it on in those games. But it's almost like Georgia's kind of lulled us to sleep a little bit this year. They just keep winning. You've heard the numbers. 26 in a row, 42 of the last 4. In football, 42 of their last 43. And consecutive national championships. And that goes back to November 8th of 2020, when that 42 of 43 span started. So your overall question, does Ole Miss have enough on defense to slow down the Georgia offense? I think Pete Golding, based on what the Ole Miss defense has done so far this year, will have a game plan that has the Ole Miss players largely in the right position to make plays. But because there haven't been just a ton of, like, busts this year.
No.
I mean, every defense is going to have some. You're going to have a blown coverage or a missed assignment, and, you know, it turns into a big play, and you're like, how was nobody around it? There haven't been a lot of those, just full-on busts. Generally speaking, Ole Miss has been in the right place to make a play on defense. They've got to have a really good tackling game or a really good game tackling.
I think my answer is yes. Doesn't mean they'll do it.
Can they slow them down? Yes. Can they stop them? Can they shut them down? No, probably not. Not for 4 quarters.
Follow-up question, and it changes constantly because that's what it does, but the forecast has changed dramatically for the game Saturday.
Yeah.
I mean, they're expecting now rain during the game.
Yeah, I pulled it up just a second ago. So during the day on Saturday in Athens, high of 56, 50% chance of showers. Saturday night, low of 47, cloudiness with occasional rain showers.
Yeah.
I don't think they're talking about enough rain to really have an effect. It's not the rain that they got during the Tennessee game last year.
Will it ever rain like that again in world history?
That just turned into a big old party for Georgia fans in the rain.
The only thing, because people are asking what benefit that serves, like you said, it doesn't seem like it's enough rain to, like, make the field sloppy or whatever. I think when it comes to running game versus running game, Ole Miss would have an advantage. But you do kind of hope that rain in the forecast, cold rain, subdues a crowd.
I'm not sure you're subduing this crowd Saturday night.
Probably not.
I think the only way that crowd
hope.
gets subdued is if Ole Miss somehow punches Georgia in the mouth and it's not close, and that seems highly unlikely.
And then the cold rain comes. Get up 14-0, and then the monsoon comes.
Here is a question that I've been thinking about as well. We've talked about Ole Miss being a really good fourth quarter team. And in, 3 or 4 of their wins this year, they've trailed in the fourth quarter. Maybe it's 4 or 5 of their wins. I don't know. If this is a one-score game, if Georgia has a one-score lead, 3, 7, 6, somewhere in between, going into the fourth quarter, does Ole Miss's confidence level go up? If it's a ball game going into the fourth quarter, is Ole Miss able to kind of call on, this is where we want to be? Fourth quarter has been ours this year.
Something to that for sure. They've been such a really good team in the fourth quarter. So, yeah. Yeah, it's anytime you have that. Anytime you have the underdog on the road, they stay in the game till the fourth quarter, they're in full believe mode when that whistle blows.
Yeah. And to
Been
me,
there
the other
before.
thing that Ole Miss has done a really good job of is answering. Opponent scores, they answer.